She found the alpha king trapped as a helpless wolf pup. His pack called her true Luna. Every sound, the crunch of snow beneath her boots, the whisper of the wind through the branches felt alive. She had walked these woods countless times, yet tonight something felt different, almost urgent, like the forest itself was calling her. Her eyes scanned the trees as she followed a faint trail of disturbed snow. She had heard whispers in the village of strange creatures wandering near the forest edge. But Alara did not fear what she could not see. She was a guardian of these lands, a woman attuned to its mysteries. Her heart beat steady, even as the forest seemed to hold its breath. Suddenly, a soft whimper reached her ears. Alara froze, listening. It was faint, almost lost beneath the rustling leaves, yet unmistakable, a small, trembling sound. She followed it, her instincts guiding her like a compass. There, half hidden beneath a low bough, was a tiny wolf pup. Its fur was matted with snow, and its amber eyes, wide and frightened, seemed far older than its small body. Alara knelt slowly, keeping her hands visible. "Shh, it's all right," she whispered, her voice calm. The pup's gaze locked onto hers, and in that moment, a strange, electric tension passed between them. It was as if the wolf could understand her words, even more, as if it understood her very soul. She scooped the pup into her arms, feeling the little body shiver. But this shiver was more than cold. It was pain, fear, and something else she could not name. The forest around her seemed to lean closer, the shadows stretching toward her. A low growl echoed softly, almost from nowhere, and she realized the pup's pack was near. "They trust you," she murmured, surprised by the warmth that spread through her chest. She had never seen a wolf pack respect a human in this way. Yet, somewhere in the quiet night, she felt their silent acknowledgement. Carrying the pup, Alara returned to her small cabin hidden at the edge of the woods. Inside, she laid him gently on a blanket beside the fire. The little creature curled into a tight ball, trembling as if the weight of the world pressed upon him. "Who are you, little one?" she asked softly, brushing a strand of frost from his fur. His eyes flickered with a strange intensity, and for a heartbeat, Alara thought she saw a flicker of a man in those golden eyes, a king, fierce and proud, trapped in a small, helpless body. Days passed and the pup began to regain strength under her care. Alara named him Kale for no reason other than it felt right. Yet, every time she looked into his eyes, a strange pull tugged at her heart. There was something ancient about him, a story untold, a power restrained. At night, she would wake to find him staring at her from the edge of his blanket. His gaze was penetrating, almost human in its depth, and it stirred feelings she did not understand. Loneliness, longing, and a fierce desire to protect all blended together, and she felt the first stirrings of a bond unlike anything she had known. Then came the night of the blood moon. Alara had read the old stories. The forest held magic that awoke only when the moon turned red. That night, she carried Kale to the clearing near the river, hoping the moonlight would strengthen him. As the moon rose, a wind swirled around them, carrying the scent of old magic. Kale stiffened in her arms, letting out a whine that echoed unnaturally through the trees. She knelt, placing him gently on the snow. And then, as the moonlight touched him, his eyes flashed bright amber, glowing with a fierce light that made Alara step back. The forest seemed to bend around them. Shadows danced unnaturally, and whispers floated in the air, words she could not understand but somehow felt deep in her chest. Kale shook, and for a moment he looked larger, stronger, as if the little pup had been holding back a mighty force. Then, just as suddenly, he collapsed onto the snow, trembling and weak once more. Alara knelt beside him, placing her hands on his tiny frame. "You are not just a pup, are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. His eyes met hers and she felt a jolt, a connection that was more than thought. It was instinct, soul-deep and undeniable. That night, as Kale slept beside her, the forest's whispers seemed to settle into a quiet hum. Alara lay awake, thinking of the strange reverence in the eyes of the unseen pack, and of the fleeting moments when Kale had seemed more than a wolf. Something ancient had been disturbed in the forest, something that connected her to the pup in a way she could neither explain nor resist. A week later, strange things began to happen. Shadows moved at the edge of her vision. Wolves in the distance howled not with hunger but with a mournful, urgent call. Kale began to grow restless, pacing and whining at times, his small body vibrating with hidden power, and in her dreams she saw him, not a pup but a man. He was strong, regal, and his eyes were filled with a mixture of pride, pain, and longing. She would wake with a start, clutching her blanket, heart racing. The forest had become alive in a way that felt both magical and dangerous. The pull between her and Kale grew stronger each day, and she began to sense that her bond with the pup was not accidental. Somehow, the forest had chosen her to guide him, to protect him, to awaken him. One evening, as the snow began to fall in soft, heavy flakes, Alara heard voices, growls, whispers, almost like a chant coming from the woods. Kale stiffened, ears twitching, and his eyes locked onto hers with urgent intensity. The shadows shifted, and through the trees she glimpsed movement, figures darker than the night, wolves unlike any she had ever seen, their eyes glowing with malice. Alara's heart thumped in her chest. She gathered Kale in her arms, feeling his small body tremble. "Stay close to me," she whispered, stepping toward the cabin. But the forest seemed to stretch, to twist, to block her path. The wolves stepped out, forming a circle around her, their growls low and threatening, but not toward her. Kale whimpered softly, and then, to Alara's astonishment, the wolves bowed their heads slightly. Her pulse quickened. The pack recognized something in her, a bond, a destiny, a claim she did not yet understand. She felt it too, in the pull between her heart and Kale's, in the warmth that spread through her hands and chest when she held him. As she moved forward, one of the shadow wolves lunged, not at her but at the air, as if trying to break an invisible cage. Kale's eyes glowed brightly, and a strange, deep growl rumbled from his tiny throat. Alara's breath caught. Something inside the pup, trapped for so long, stirred and fought to emerge. And then, just as suddenly, the wolves melted back into the shadows, leaving Alara and Kale alone in the clearing. The wind sighed, and the snow fell silently around them. Alara held him close, feeling the thrum of his tiny heart against hers. She realized with a mixture of awe and fear that this little creature, helpless as he seemed, was far more than he appeared. "Who are you, Kale?" she whispered into the quiet night, brushing a strand of hair from his fur. The pup blinked slowly, amber eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight, and nuzzled against her hand. Alara felt a shiver of both wonder and dread. Somewhere deep in the forest, a howl rose, long, mournful, and powerful. Kale's ears pricked, and for a brief moment his small body trembled with a strength that belonged to a king. Alara knew, in that instant, that her life had changed forever. The forest had brought her to him, and something ancient, powerful, and dangerous had awakened in her presence. She did not yet know what lay ahead, or the trials that would test her courage, her heart, and the bond she shared with the wolf pup who was far more than he seemed. And as she looked into Kale's glowing amber eyes, she whispered to the moonlit sky, "I will not let you face this alone." A shiver ran through the forest, and in the distance, a pair of golden eyes watched her from the shadows, intelligent, alert, and full of a longing that mirrored her own. The journey had only just begun. Alara could still feel the tremor in the forest from the blood moon night. Kale, the tiny pup she had rescued, seemed more restless than ever. The amber glow of his eyes had lingered in her mind, a silent reminder that he was far more than an ordinary wolf. She carried him carefully, feeling the weight of the strange responsibility that now rested on her shoulders. The days that followed were filled with quiet moments of observation. Kale would sometimes growl low, his gaze following things she could not see. At times he would stiffen, ears pricked, as if hearing whispers from another world. Alara had studied old texts and scrolls about the forest and its hidden magic, but nothing she had read compared to the feeling that thrummed through her chest whenever she looked at the pup. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the jagged mountains surrounding the forest, a shadow fell over her cabin. The hairs on the back of her neck rose. Outside, a large wolf, black as night, stood on a rise, watching. Its golden eyes were sharp and intelligent, and the way it held itself suggested authority. Alara felt a chill. The wolf stepped closer. Kale whimpered in her arms, tiny but tense. "Easy, Kale," she murmured. "I think it means no harm." The black wolf circled them, sniffing the air, and then bowed its head slightly to Kale. Alara's breath caught. The pack, it recognized him. More than that, it seemed to honor him. She realized then that the pup's presence commanded respect, even in this small, fragile form. As the black wolf disappeared into the shadows, a thought struck her. This was no ordinary wolf pack, and Kale was no ordinary pup. She had felt it before, but now it was undeniable. Something ancient, something powerful, lived inside him. That night, as she tended the fire and Kale slept beside her, Alara pulled out an old scroll she had found months earlier in a ruined temple at the forest's edge. It spoke of a cursed Alpha King, a ruler of a hidden wolf realm who had been transformed into a wolf pup during a celestial eclipse. According to the legend, only the one who bore the courage of the moon, the true Luna, could awaken him. Alara's pulse quickened. "Could it be you, Kale?" she whispered. The little pup's ears twitched, and he let out a soft whine that sounded almost like a question. Her heart ached with a strange mixture of fear and hope. If the legend was true, then she was no longer just a guardian of the forest. She was tied to this pup, to a destiny that had chosen her. The following days brought more signs. Kale began showing flashes of strength that were impossible for a pup of his size. Sometimes he would leap onto a rock and land perfectly, his claws gripping the stone as if he weighed far more than he did. Other times when he growled, it was not small or frightened. It was commanding, full of authority, as if the pack could hear his silent orders even without words. Alara struggled to understand. She felt a strange tension growing between them. She was the protector, yet Kale, even trapped in his small form, seemed to test her, to challenge her. It was as though the forest itself had set them both on trial, each learning from the other. One night, Kale whined and padded restlessly at the edge of the cabin. Alara followed him outside. The forest was bathed in silver light from the full moon, and the snow sparkled like scattered diamonds. Then she saw them, figures moving in the shadows, wolves unlike any she had ever seen. Their fur was darker than night, their eyes glowing with a golden hunger, and they moved with precision like hunters trained to strike. Alara's heart raced. "Kale, stay close," she whispered. But the pup padded forward, tiny body trembling, yet radiating a strength that seemed to push back the approaching threat. The wolves stopped, forming a semicircle around them, growls low and warning. And then Kale did something that made her gasp. His amber eyes flared bright, and a low, deep growl rumbled from his throat. Even in his small form, the sound carried the weight of a king. The attacking wolves hesitated, as if recognizing his authority. For a brief moment, the forest seemed to hold its breath. Alara realized then that the pup was not helpless, not really. The curse had trapped his body, but not his spirit, not his strength, not his power, not the alpha within. The thought filled her with awe and fear. The creature in her arms was capable of more than she could imagine, and she had been chosen to guide him through it all. Days passed, and the bond between them deepened. Kale began to follow her everywhere, sometimes curling at her feet as she moved through the forest, other times climbing onto her shoulder with surprising agility. Alara felt a warmth and connection she had never known. She spoke to him softly, and though he could not answer in words, she felt that he understood, that he responded with more than just instinct. It was during one of these quiet evenings that the truth began to reveal itself more clearly. Kale whimpered and pawed at her hand, staring into her eyes. Then, for the briefest instant, his form shimmered, not a pup but a man. Tall, strong, with golden eyes filled with fire and pain. Ilara's breath caught. She had seen legends of shapeshifters before, but this was something she could feel in her bones, in her heart. The man behind the pup's eyes was alive, trapped, and longing. The moment passed as quickly as it came, and Kale was a pup again, trembling softly in her hands. Ilara held him close, whispering words she hoped he could hear. "I will help you," she said. "Whatever it takes, I will not leave you alone." But the forest was not quiet for long. The next day, while gathering herbs near a frozen stream, Ilara sensed movement behind her. She turned, and a shadowy figure stepped out, a wolf unlike any other she had seen. Its fur was silver, glinting in the sunlight, eyes sharp and calculating. And in its presence, Kale whined and backed into her legs, but his amber eyes flared with defiance. The silver wolf circled them, studying Ilara with an intelligence that felt almost human. Then it spoke, its voice low and resonant, a sound that carried through the air like rolling thunder. "You are the one the forest has chosen," it said, "the true Luna. She who will awaken the Alpha." Ilara's eyes widened. She had heard of the bond, the stories of Luna and Alpha, but never thought them real. And yet here she was, standing in the snow with a tiny pup whose golden eyes held the weight of a king, and a wolf speaking words she could understand, confirming everything she had feared and hoped. "The Alpha," she whispered. "Kale, you are the Alpha." The pup whimpered, and for a moment she thought she saw the faintest flicker of a human expression on his small face, pride, fear, and a deep longing that mirrored her own. The silver wolf nodded. "He was cursed during the last blood moon," it said. "A sorcerer sought to destroy his reign, to trap him in helpless form. Only the true Luna can guide him, awaken his power, and break the curse. But beware, the shadows that seek him are relentless, and many will try to claim the throne while he is weak." Ilara felt a shiver run down her spine. This was bigger than she had imagined. The forest, the wolves, the pup, the curse, everything was connected. Her role was not just to protect Kale, but to guide him, to help him regain the power he had lost, and perhaps to find a bond that went beyond simple care. Over the next few nights, Ilara and Kale trained quietly. She guided him through exercises of balance and agility, watching in awe as he responded with flashes of the Alpha's strength. And at night they would sit beneath the stars, and she would feel his gaze on her, curious, intelligent, patient, yet filled with something she could not name. One night a howl echoed through the forest, long and mournful. Kale perked up, ears alert, eyes glowing with an intensity that made her gasp. He padded toward the edge of the clearing, then stopped, looking back at her. It was as if he was calling her to follow. Ilara stepped closer, heart pounding. "I'm here, Kale, always." The pup whimpered softly. Then, in a sudden burst of power, his body shimmered under the moonlight, and for a fleeting moment, he appeared as the Alpha he was meant to be, a towering wolf with golden eyes that burned like fire. The moment passed, and Kale was small and trembling again. Ilara held him close, feeling the weight of their bond settle deep in her chest. "We will find a way," she whispered. "We will face whatever comes together." And as the wind swept through the trees, carrying whispers of unseen eyes and lurking shadows, Ilara realized the truth. Her life had changed forever. The Alpha King, trapped as a pup, had chosen her, and the forest had bound them together in a destiny that neither could escape. The forest was darker than usual that night. The wind whispered like a secret through the branches, carrying scents of frost and old magic. Ilara gripped Kale close to her chest as they moved deeper into the heart of the woods, past trails she had never dared to follow before. The pup's amber eyes glimmered with a strange mix of fear and determination, as if he understood that the time for hiding was over. "Stay close, Kale," she murmured. though she knew he could feel her courage even without words. The bond between them had grown stronger since the blood moon. She could sense his thoughts, his mood, and even the faint echoes of his true power. Yet the curse that trapped him in a small body was still strong, keeping the Alpha King fragile in form but not in spirit. They reached a clearing, circular and silent under the pale moonlight. Here, the ancient magic of the forest pulsed visibly, glowing runes etched into stones that hummed faintly with power. Alara knelt to examine them, realizing this place was part of a ritual ground, a space where past alphas had been tested and where Kale might reclaim his strength. "Do you feel it, Kale?" she whispered, placing him on the ground. The pup padded carefully onto the cold stone, sniffing the glowing symbols. Suddenly, his amber eyes flared, reflecting the moonlight in fiery brilliance. He growled low and powerful, a sound that shook the leaves and echoed off the trees. Alara stepped back, feeling awe and fear at once. Even in this small form, Kale's alpha spirit radiated strength. She reached out to touch his fur, and a surge of warmth ran through her. It was as if the forest itself acknowledged her presence, confirming her role as the true Luna. The runes pulsed brighter, and a voice, deep and commanding, echoed in the clearing. "Only the bond of courage and trust can awaken the Alpha. Face your fear. Face your truth." Alara felt her heart tighten. The message was clear: they would face trials tonight. She glanced at Kale. The pup's ears twitched and his tail lifted slightly. He seemed ready, but Alara knew the danger was not fully clear. From the shadows, figures began to appear: wolves, larger than Kale, with silver and black fur that shimmered unnaturally. Their eyes glowed like molten gold, and their movements were silent yet threatening. Some circled the clearing, others watched from the trees, but all radiated judgment. One stepped forward, a massive wolf, taller than any she had seen. Its voice rumbled, echoing through the clearing. "Only the one worthy may guide him." "Luna, do you have the courage to face what lies ahead?" Alara's hands trembled slightly, but she squared her shoulders. "I do," she said firmly. "I will not fail him." The wolf nodded once, as if testing her resolve. Then, without warning, the shadows surged forward. The wolves attacked, not with fangs but with illusions, shifting shapes and visions that forced Alara to face her deepest fears. She saw Kale in danger, trapped, lost forever. She saw herself alone, rejected by the pack, powerless to help him. And she saw the Alpha King, tall and proud, looking at her with disappointment, as if she had already failed him. Her breath came fast, heart hammering. She held Kale close, whispering, "We are together. We can do this." The bond between them surged like fire. She could feel his small body trembling, but the warmth in his chest told her he drew courage from her words. A wolf leapt from the shadows, transforming into a twisted version of Kale, a reflection of the fear and weakness he carried. Alara froze, staring at the shadow pup. "No," she said, stepping forward. "You are stronger than this." The shadow lunged, but Alara reached out and touched Kale. A burst of light flowed from her hands into him, and the shadow recoiled, shrinking into mist. Kale growled, small but fierce, and for the first time in full moonlight he stood taller, his posture brimming with the spirit of the Alpha. Alara gasped, seeing the glimpse of what he truly was. "You're ready," she whispered, tears shining in her eyes. "We can do this together." The other wolves paused, as if recognizing his awakening. Then the massive silver wolf approached Alara, bowing its head in respect. "The bond is true. The Luna has proven herself. But one trial remains. The shadow that binds the Alpha still waits." Alara nodded, though her chest felt tight. She had learned the importance of courage in the last weeks, and she had discovered the depth of the bond she shared with Kale. The trials were not just for him, they were for her as well. She had to face her own fears, doubts, and weaknesses to guide him to freedom. From the far edge of the clearing, a dark figure emerged, the rival sorcerer who had cursed Kale. His robes seemed to absorb the moonlight, and his eyes glowed with a cruel satisfaction. "So the Luna comes to awaken the pup," he sneered. "Do you truly believe you can succeed where others have failed?" Alara's grip on Kale tightened. The pup whimpered, small but defiant. "We will," she said quietly, more to herself than to him. Her words carried strength, and she felt the forest respond. The runes glowed brighter, a shield of magic encircling them both. The sorcerer raised his hands, summoning shadows that twisted and reached toward them. Kale growled, low and commanding, and for a fleeting moment, his small body shimmered with golden light. He leapt forward, biting at the shadows. Alara followed, holding a staff she had crafted from enchanted wood, striking at the tendrils of darkness. The battle was not just physical, it was mental, emotional, and spiritual. Alara faced visions of failure, of loss, of loneliness. Kale faced the remnants of his pride, fear, and anger. And together, their bond grew stronger with every moment, a tether of trust and courage that neither could break. Finally, the sorcerer's shadow surged one last time, forming a massive wolf-like figure, glowing with dark magic. It lunged at Kale, teeth bared, eyes burning. Alara stepped forward, planting her hands on Kale, letting the bond between them flow fully. A golden light erupted, surrounding both of them. Kale's body shimmered and grew, larger and stronger, though still not fully human. The shadow screeched and dissolved into mist. The forest fell silent as if holding its breath. Kale looked at Alara, small yet commanding, and for a moment the pup's face reflected the man he truly was, regal, proud, and filled with deep gratitude. Alara knelt beside him, holding his small form. "You did it," she whispered. "We did it." Kale nuzzled her, trembling but alive. His eyes, golden and full of strength, looked into hers, and she felt the weight of his trust, his pride, and something deeper, a connection that went beyond words. But their victory was not complete. The silver wolf appeared again, speaking in a voice like rolling thunder. "The Alpha's spirit is strong, but the curse is not fully broken. One trial remains, the heart of the forest, where the source of darkness waits. Only there will the bond be truly sealed." Alara's heart sank. She had hoped their trials were over, but she could not falter now. Kale whined softly, nuzzling her hand, and she felt his courage mingling with her own. Together, they would face whatever lay ahead. The forest around them shifted. Shadows lingered, whispering secrets, and the runes pulsed with anticipation. Alara knew the path would be dangerous, but for the first time she felt the full strength of their bond. The true Luna and the Alpha, trapped but unbroken, were ready to face the final trial. As dawn approached, the first light of the sun caught Kale's amber eyes, and for a moment they shimmered like gold. Alara held him close, feeling the pulse of magic in the forest, the lingering shadows of the sorcerer, and the promise of what was to come. The bond between them had been tested, forged in courage and trust. But the heart of the forest awaited, and beyond it, the final challenge that could either free the Alpha completely or trap him forever. Alara tightened her grip on Kale. "We face it together," she said firmly, her voice carrying into the forest. The pup's small body trembled, but his gaze met hers, filled with determination. The journey was far from over, and in the shadows, unseen, the sorcerer watched, a cruel smile playing at his lips. He knew the bond had grown strong, but he also knew that the final trial could destroy them both. The heart of the forest was unlike anything Alara had ever seen. Trees twisted into enormous spirals, their roots forming natural arches, and the air shimmered with old magic that made her skin tingle. Shadows clung to every branch, moving as if alive, whispering secrets she could almost understand. She held Kale close, feeling his small body trembling in her arms. The journey had been long and dangerous, but now they were at the source of the curse, the place where his true power could finally awaken. Alara set Kale down gently. "This is it," she whispered. "Stay close to me. We face this together." The pup's amber eyes glimmered with determination, and though his body was small, the courage inside him was enormous. From the center of the clearing, a swirl of dark mist rose, forming shapes of wolves long dead, twisted by the sorcerer's magic. Their eyes glowed with a cold, golden fire, and a deep voice echoed through the forest. "You cannot awaken him. The Alpha belongs to darkness now." Alara stepped forward, planting her feet firmly in the snow. She lifted her hands, drawing on the energy that had been growing inside her since the moment she found Kale. The forest responded, the runes on the stones glowed, and the wind seemed to carry her courage through the trees. Kale padded forward beside her, small but brave. He growled, a low, commanding sound that shook the shadows. "I will not be trapped any longer," his eyes seemed to say, and Alara felt the Alpha's spirit radiate from him, filling the clearing with warmth and light. The shadows surged, forming the sorcerer himself, dark and twisting, eyes burning with anger. "You dare challenge me, Luna? You dare awaken him?" His voice was like thunder rolling through the twisted trees. Alara took a deep breath. "We dare," she said firmly. "Together, we are stronger than your darkness." Kale whined softly, pressing against her, but the heat of their bond strengthened both of them. The sorcerer waved his hands, and tendrils of shadow reached for them. Alara braced herself, pushing her hands forward, letting the energy of the forest flow into Kale. The pup's body shimmered under her touch, golden light spilling from him, bright enough to push back the darkness. "Focus, Kale," she whispered. "You are not just a pup, you are the Alpha. You are strong. You are king." Kale growled louder, and for the first time he stood fully as tall as a wolf could be, muscles rippling beneath golden fur, eyes burning with power. The forest seemed to roar with him, responding to the Alpha's awakening. The sorcerer recoiled, his shadows faltering in the face of such light. But the battle was not yet over. The sorcerer's shadow wolf lunged, massive and dark, aiming straight for Kale. Alara stepped forward, staff in hand, chanting the words she had learned from the old scrolls. The ground beneath them glowed, forming a protective circle around the true Luna and her Alpha. The shadow wolf hit the circle and screeched, unable to pass. Kale's amber eyes blazed brighter than ever. With a powerful leap, he surged forward, claws and teeth glowing with magic, striking at the shadow wolf. The creature howled and dissolved into mist, leaving only the sorcerer, trembling and furious. Alara felt the connection surge between them, stronger than anything she had ever felt. She placed her hand on Kale's head. "You are free," she whispered. "You are the Alpha you were always meant to be." The pup's body shimmered violently, light spilling from him until it became overwhelming. When the glow faded, standing before her was no longer a small wolf, but Kale, fully grown as the Alpha King. His fur was golden, shining like sunlight, eyes sharp and regal. He looked at Alara not just as a pup looked at a guardian, but as a king looked at his equal. "Alara," his voice rumbled deep and rich, carrying the weight of both power and gratitude. "You have done this for me. You have awakened me. You are my true Luna." Alara's breath caught. The forest seemed to hold its breath with her. I only did what was right," she said softly. But the warmth in her chest told her there was more, something unspoken, powerful and binding between them. The sorcerer screamed, fury and fear mingling in his voice. He tried one last spell, a desperate surge of dark energy, but Kale stepped forward, golden light radiating from his paws, and the spell shattered before it could reach them. The forest itself seemed to join in, roots rising, winds blowing, magic flowing to erase every trace of the curse. With a final roar, Kale faced the sorcerer. "Your darkness has no hold here," he said, voice strong, regal, and unwavering. The sorcerer's shadow dissolved into nothingness, leaving only silence. The forest calmed, the wind softened, and the glow of the runes faded to a gentle silver. Alara approached Kale, her heart full. She reached out and he bowed his head slightly, letting her touch him. "You are truly remarkable," he said softly, a rare smile touching his muzzle. "I could not have done this without you." Alara felt tears prick her eyes. "And I could not have done it without you," she replied. Their eyes met, golden and amber, two spirits bound by courage, trust, and something deeper than words. The Alpha King had returned, but not just as a ruler of the pack. He had returned as a being transformed, humbled by his curse, and strengthened by the bond he shared with the true Luna. And Alara, once a solitary guardian of the forest, had become something more, partner, equal, and guide to a king who had been trapped for too long. The wolves of the pack emerged from the shadows, circling around them, howling in reverence and joy. They recognized Kale fully now, and they looked to Alara with respect. She was no longer just a visitor. She was the Luna, the mate of the Alpha, and the protector of the forest's balance. Kale nuzzled her gently. "We have done it," he said, voice softening, almost a whisper. "Together," Alara smiled, her hands trembling as she stroked his golden fur. "Together," she echoed. For a moment silence fell over the forest. Then the wind carried a soft sound, a howl not of threat but of peace. The curse was broken, but the bond remained, stronger than ever, unshakable and sacred. Kale shifted, muscles stretching, fur glinting in the moonlight, and then he lowered himself to the ground beside Alara. "The forest and the pack owe you their loyalty," he said, voice full of warmth. "And I owe you my life." Alara felt a shiver run through her. "And I," she said, her voice steady now, "owe you my heart." They sat together beneath the moonlight, the forest calm, the pack surrounding them, and the shadows that had once threatened them gone. The trials had forged their bond, tempered by courage, trust, and the shared fight against darkness. The Alpha was no longer trapped, and the Luna had found her destiny. As dawn began to break, the first rays of sunlight touched the golden fur of the Alpha King, and he looked at Alara with an intensity that made her chest tighten. "The bond between us, it is more than magic," he said softly. "It is trust, it is respect, it is—" He paused, a gentle smile spreading across his face. "It is love." Alara's heart skipped. "Yes," she whispered, leaning closer. "It is everything." The forest seemed to sigh in relief, the wind carrying the promise of new beginnings. The pack howled once more, not in challenge but in celebration, and the trees glimmered as if they themselves rejoiced in the freedom of the Alpha and the rise of the true Luna. Even as the sun rose, a faint shimmer lingered at the edges of the forest, a reminder that magic was never truly gone. But Alara and Kale had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. Their bond, unbroken and eternal, would guide the forest and the pack for generations to come. And in that golden morning, the Alpha King nuzzled the true Luna, his amber eyes soft, full of gratitude and awe. Alara smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning of their journey together, one of trust, love, and the shared guardianship of a world where magic, courage, and heart were one.